members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang?
Yes, ma'am.
They still got to prove the though, which I don't think they're going to ever be able to prove because it's just not a gang. He said YSL is a gang. He know people on this trial who committed crimes in furtherance of the gang. That's a lie. That's a full-blown lie. I know individuals on this case that committed crimes in furtherance of the gang. That's RICO. So if a get found guilty on RICO, you really just you got a light to. And you are 100% lying. You don't know nobody on the case. I ain't ever committed no crime. Duke ain't committed no crime. Yak ain't committed no crime. Them the only 3 people you know on this case. Ain't now one of them committed no crime. So who the f*** you talking about?
You were present when law enforcement officers stopped the vehicle. You were present along with Jeffrey Williams, wherein hydrocodone, methamphetamines, and a firearm were recovered. These items did not belong to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you acknowledge the following statement? I recognize, accept, and deeply regret that my talent and music indirectly furthered YSL the gang to the detriment of my community. YSL as a gang must end. Is that your statement or acknowledgement?
Yes.
Listen.
Yes, sir.
Promises. Make promises. Just keep promises. Whatever you anytime you ever think you want to know anything, tell me. I'll tell you anything. But don't tell the world.
What you got, bro?
Yes, you can.
Hey.
I don't have your number.
Whatever.
Well, give it to me. If you ain't giving it to her,
Young Thug built his multi-million-dollar empire, YSL, on one unbreakable rule: loyalty. It wasn't just a record label, it was a brotherhood, a family forged on the streets of Atlanta and proven on the music charts. But when the entire empire was threatened with life in prison, the man who preached loyalty above all else faced an impossible choice. Did he shatter his own code and betray his closest allies, including his star protege, Gunna, just to save himself? This is the story of how the leader of Young Slime life allegedly became its biggest threat, turning a story of loyalty into a saga of betrayal. To really get the depth of this alleged betrayal, you first have to understand what Young Thug built. In hip-hop, few figures are as influential as Jeffrey Williams. The world knows him as Young Thug. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a visionary, a one-of-a-kind genius who completely reshaped the sound of trap music. But his greatest creation wasn't a song, it was YSL. YSL started as an acronym, but its meaning was always shifting, from Young Stoner Life for the record label to Young Slime Life for its street ties. For Thug and the dozens of young men he brought into his circle, it was all one and the same, a collective bound by a code of unwavering loyalty. This wasn't just branding, it was a promise. The image they showed the world was a tight-knit family with Young Thug as the undisputed patriarch. He pulled artists from the rough neighborhoods of Atlanta and gave them a shot. Thug was known for his wild generosity, showering his crew with cash, cars, and jewelry. More importantly, he gave them his cosign, a priceless asset in the cutthroat music business. And nobody benefited more from this than Sergio Kitchens, a young rapper who would become known to the world as Gunna. Gunna was more than just another artist on YSL. He was Thug's chosen one, his most successful protege. Their chemistry was electric, in and out of the studio. They called each other twin, a term that meant they were closer than friends, closer than brothers. Thug invested everything into Gunna, not just money, but his time. In an emotional interview, Thug would later confess, "I gave him more time than my kids." Together, they shot to the top of the music world, their success a symbol of the YSL family's power. They lived by the street code: you don't turn on your own, you ride for your brothers, and you never ever cooperate. This empire of loyalty made them superstars, but it also laid the groundwork for their spectacular and very public downfall. On May 9, 2022, the empire of loyalty was shaken to its foundation. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis unsealed a massive 56-count indictment against Young Thug and 27 other members of his YSL collective. The charge that stood above all, the one that threatened to bring it all down, was a violation of Georgia's Racketeer Influence Act and Corrupt Organizations Act, better known as RICO. If you're not familiar, a RICO charge is a legal sledgehammer. It isn't about one single crime, it's about proving a pattern of criminal activity run by an organization. Prosecutors use it to dismantle groups they see as criminal enterprises, from the mafia to street gangs. In this case, the prosecution's argument was simple. YSL wasn't just a record label called Young Stoner Life. It was a violent criminal street gang known as Young Slime Life, and Young Thug was its founder and leader. The indictment listed a series of overt acts, allegedly committed to push this criminal enterprise forward. These acts range from things as seemingly small as social media posts and hand signs to violent crimes like armed robbery and murder. The prosecution was weaponizing YSL's own art, their lyrics and music videos, as evidence against them, painting a picture of a decade-long conspiracy. The news hit the hip-hop community like an earthquake. Young Thug, Gunna, and 26 others were arrested. The very foundation of YSL, built on the idea of an unbreakable brotherhood, was now being put to the ultimate test. With life sentences on the table, the question on everyone's mind was simple. Would the code of silence hold, or would the family turn on itself to survive? The world was about to find out, and the first crack in the wall would come from the person Young Thug had invested in the most. For 7 months, the members of YSL sat in a Fulton County jail, their futures hanging in the balance. Then, in December 2022, the first domino fell. Gunna was coming home, but his freedom came with a price that would destroy his reputation in the eyes of many. Gunna had taken a plea deal. Specifically, he took what's called an offered plea. It's a tricky legal move where you don't actually admit you're guilty, but you do acknowledge that prosecutors have enough evidence to probably convict you at trial. It's a way to cut your losses and dodge a much longer sentence. Gunna was sentenced to 5 years, with 1 year converted to time served and the rest suspended, letting him walk free on conditions like community service. But it wasn't just the plea that set the internet on fire, it was the courtroom footage. In a video that's now infamous, a prosecutor lays out the terms of the deal. She asks Gunna a series of questions he has to agree to. YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang. Standing before the judge, Gunna answered with 2 words that would haunt him. Yes, ma'am.
Please state after each statement whether or not you agree or acknowledge that the statements are true, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
To the outside world, and especially to those who live by the street code, this was the ultimate betrayal. He had, on public record, confirmed the prosecution's main argument, that YSL was a gang. His lawyers put out a statement insisting Gunna hadn't cooperated or given statements against anyone, and that he wouldn't testify. But the damage was done. The clip of him saying "yes ma'am" went viral. He was immediately labeled a snitch and a rat. The backlash was instant. In hip-hop, where authenticity and street cred are everything, being called a snitch can be a career death sentence. Gunna became the face of betrayal in the YSL case. Meanwhile, Young Thug, the man who preached loyalty, was still locked up, watching his protege and twin walk free after publicly confirming the very story prosecutors were using to try and put him away for life. The pressure on Thug was immense, but the story was about to take a shocking, hypocritical turn. Everyone thought Gunna was the one who broke the code, but leaked audio would soon suggest that Young Thug himself may have been the first to talk. For months, Gunna took all the heat. He was the traitor, the one who caved. But in late 2023, a bombshell dropped that threatened to flip the whole story on its head. A 2-hour audio clip of a police interrogation with Young Thug started making the rounds online. The audio was old, from years earlier, connected to a 2015 incident where Lil Wayne's tour bus was shot at in Atlanta. The man convicted for the shooting was Jimmy Winfrey, also known as Pee Wee Roscoe, a known YSL affiliate. In the leaked audio, you can hear Thug talking with investigators.
So what you're saying is you will talk to us without your attorney present?
Yep.
Okay.
Questions that I wouldn't be able to answer, I wouldn't answer.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To many people who heard it, it sounded like he was doing a lot more than just answering questions. It sounded like cooperation. In what many consider the most damning part, Thug appears to give up Roscoe's name, providing information that could be seen as tying him to the shooting.
Williams, you did.
Whatever.
You were wonderful today.
Listen,
Yes, sir.
promises, make promises. Just we'll keep promises. Whatever you anytime you ever think you want to know anything, tell me. I'm telling you anything. But don't tell the world.
What's your
I can't even get
number?
in touch
Yes,
with
you
you.
can.
Hey,
I don't have your number.
Whatever.
well, give it to me. If you ain't give it to her,
Yeah.
okay.
He said that phone works. It's my phone.
Okay, but you give it to him real quick.
Because some people, man,
Baby, you can get that motherfucker a heartbeat.
You gotta-
I go buy me a phone and you already gonna have it now.
do you want me to give you my card or you don't want my card? Because well, some people don't, and when they're in jail, they don't want to have like the cop's card because they worry that, oh, they gotta think I'm snitching or
that's what I
something.
said.
You don't care?
You don't want
You don't want it, okay.
All of a sudden, the man who built an empire on death before dishonor was being accused of the exact sin he and his fan had crucified Gunna for. The hypocrisy wasn't lost on anyone. The same internet that had viciously attacked Gunna now turned on Thug. The narrative started to shift. Was Gunna just following the example his own leader had already set? Former YSL members who had stayed quiet suddenly started talking. YSL Mondo, a co-founder, publicly called Thug out, claiming he was the real snitch. Rollo, another Atlanta rapper, said the same thing, suggesting Thug had been talking for years. Young Thug tried to do damage control from behind bars. He posted on social media, writing, "They didn't play my interrogation video in court because I helped my brother Naja Ratwear." His defense was that he was trying to protect someone, an act of loyalty, not betrayal. But for a lot of people, that explanation didn't stick. There's a fine line between helping a friend and giving information to the police, and it looked like Thug had crossed it. The whole thing was a mess of street codes crashing into legal games. Gunna's plea was a public, on-the-record acknowledgement that YSL was a gang. Thug's alleged cooperation was a private conversation that seemed to point a finger at a specific person in a violent crime. To the streets, both were unforgivable sins. But this new revelation raised a huge question. Was young Thug a hypocrite, punishing Gunna for a crime he himself had already committed? The lines between loyalty and betrayal are getting blurrier by the second. This case is a maze of legal drama and broken codes. To keep up with every twist and turn in this historic trial, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. As if the interrogation audio wasn't bad enough, a new wave of leaks started to surface. Recordings of young Thug's private phone calls from jail. These calls, legally recorded by the jail, gave an unfiltered look into Thug's mindset, and for many, they painted a damning picture of hypocrisy. In conversations with various people, Thug could be heard discussing the case, the plea deals, and his fellow YSL members. One of the most telling moments was about his own brother, Unfunk, who had also taken a plea deal. Thug had publicly supported his brother's choice, but in a leaked private call, Thug seemed to sing a different tune, suggesting his public support was just for show to avoid legal trouble himself. It showed him playing a complicated legal game, willing to say one thing in public and another in private. His comments on Gunna were even harsher. In leaked calls, Thug aired out all his frustration with Gunna's plea deal. He complained that Gunna admitting YSL was a gang gave prosecutors all the fuel they needed for the RICO case. He criticized Gunna for supposedly taking the plea for a woman and for breaking the code. In a formal interview, a tearful Thug said he felt betrayed and that Gunna's plea wrecked his entire defense strategy. He said Gunna never even called him to explain.
He made, which they still got to prove this though, which I don't think they're going to ever be able to prove because it's just not a game. He gave the jurors the agreement that it's a gang. He said YSL is a gang, and he know people in this on this trial who committed crimes in furtherance of the gang. You don't know nobody on this case. Yeah. That's a lie. That's a full-blown lie. I know individuals right. on this case that committed crimes in furtherance of the gang. That's RICO. So if a get found guilty on RICO, you really just you got a light to it. And you are
that's what I said.
You don't know nobody on the case. I ain't ever committed no crime. Duke ain't committed no crime. Yak ain't committed no crime. Them the only 3 people you know on this case. Ain't now one of them committed no crime. So who the f*** you talking about?
To his supporters, this was the sound of a leader hurt by his disloyal soldiers. But to his critics, it was hypocrisy at its finest. Here was young Thug, a man who seemingly cooperated years ago, now crying betrayal because his protege did something to get his own freedom. In these calls, he was heard calling other YSL members who took pleas rats while defending his own actions behind the scenes. The leaks created a firestorm. Figures like 50 Cent and 6ix9ine mocked Thug, fueling the narrative that the king of loyalty was a snitch himself. The YSL camp was completely broken. Some members defended Thug, while others seemed to mock his attempts to control the story. The man who built his empire on unity was now at the center of a storm of his own making, with his own words as the evidence. Locked up but with a story to tell, young Thug did what he does best. He turned his anger into music. In June 2023, while still behind bars, he surprise released the album Business is Business. The project was a raw, unfiltered look inside his head, and the hip-hop world immediately started searching the lyrics for clues about the betrayal. They didn't have to look hard. The most talked about track was Jonesboro, named after the South Atlanta area where he grew up. On it, Thug raps, "It's told, and he was my homie. I can't miss him, ain't nobody feel him." He never said Gunna's name, but everyone knew who he was talking about. The line was seen as a direct shot at his former protege, a public end to their brotherhood. The fact that Gunna, who used to be on every Thug project, was nowhere to be found on this album spoke volumes. Gunna had already used his own music to plead his case. On his album A Gift and a Curse, released after his plea, tracks like I Was Just Thinking and Rodeo Doctor hit the snitching allegations head on. He raps about the pain of the situation and seems to talk right to Thug, saying, "Switching on my brother? Are you serious?" He paints himself as a victim of the system, not a traitor to his friends. This lyrical back and forth turned the YSL saga from a legal case into a public feud fought on streaming services. It was a modern hip-hop beef, but with life or death stakes. Young Thug was using his art to kick members out of his own family, publicly shaming them for breaking a code that he himself stood accused of breaking first. The empire of loyalty was now a battlefield, and its king was leading the charge. The YSL RICO case and the storm of betrayals that followed has left the collective in shambles. YSL, once a symbol of unity in Atlanta, is now a fractured, bitter camp, proof of how quickly an empire can fall apart under pressure. Relationships once called brotherhoods have been destroyed, lost not to tragedy, but to what Young Thug himself called betrayal. The case has forced a tough conversation in hip-hop about the street code versus the brutal reality of the legal system. For decades, the rule has been simple: you don't talk to the police. Snitching is the biggest taboo, a label that sticks with you for life. But the YSL case shows the insane pressure defendants are under. When you're staring down a RICO charge and prosecutors are threatening you with life in prison, the choice between loyalty and freedom gets complicated, personal, and sometimes impossible. Many have defended Gunna and the others who took pleas, arguing they just made the smartest legal move they could. Their lawyers swear they did nothing to hurt Young Thug's case, but in the court of public opinion, and especially in the streets, perception is everything. Seeing Gunna in a courtroom agreeing that YSL is a gang was, for many, an act that could never be forgiven, no matter the legal details of his offered plea. At the same time, the things we've learned about Young Thug have exposed a deep hypocrisy. He built his image as the final boss of loyalty, only to be caught on tape in what many see as a cooperative conversation. His attempts to control the narrative by calling out others have been seen by some as a desperate move to point the finger somewhere else. The whole saga has become a spectacle, with people like 50 Cent using it to declare the street code dead. It all boils down to one question: what does loyalty really mean when your life is on the line? Is it a vow you can never break, or a principle that bends when you're about to snap? The story of YSL doesn't give us any easy answers. Instead, it's a dark cautionary tale about the clash between street culture and the justice system, a place where the rules aren't clear and nobody gets out clean. The story of Young Thug and YSL was supposed to be a success story. A visionary artist builds an empire from scratch, lifts his friends out of poverty, and creates a dynasty built on loyalty. Instead, it became a tragedy of betrayal, hypocrisy, and broken bonds. The main pillar of YSL was loyalty, and now it looks like the architect himself may have been the one to swing the sledgehammer. Young Thug spent years crafting an image as a leader who lived and died by the code. Yet, when the pressure was on, his actions seemed to go against his own rules. The leaked interrogation audio and the jailhouse calls, where he blasted others for taking pleas, paint a complicated and contradictory picture. He publicly shamed Gunna for making a deal to get out of jail, only to have his own questionable history with law enforcement exposed. As of now, Young Thug is out on house arrest after cutting a plea deal that shocked the hip-hop world. He's free, but with heavy restrictions, a 15-year probation, and banned from Atlanta. The YSL saga might be closing, but the debates are just getting started. Did Thug do what he had to do? Or will this deal forever shadow his legacy in the game? The streets and the culture are split, and the conversation is far from over. What's your take on Young Thug's decision and what it means for hip-hop? Was this a smart move, or did he compromise too much? Sound off in the comments below. Let's get the real discussion going. And if you want to stay locked in on every twist, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest in hip-hop news and controversy.